Welcome, everyone, to Between the Lines, conversations to ignite social change with our very own CEO, Robert Mulhall, and members of our visionary cohort who are global wellness leaders bringing their inspired practices of seeing, feeling, and healing to strengthen and repair the web of love that ties us all together. My name is Christy, and I'm your moderator today. I'll be behind the scenes to help with any technical issues. It's my pleasure to be with you all here. Please reach out to me if you need any support in the chat. We are gathered here virtually with our campus located in the Berkshire Hills of Massachusetts on the unceded territory of the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of Mohegans. And we invite you to use the link in the chat that I will repost to learn about what land you are on and its indigenous inhabitants. If you feel called, please look that up and share with us the lands that you're calling in from by typing in the chat. So I'll post that right now for all. Today, Kripalu stewards these lands as a nonprofit educational organization dedicated to empowering people and communities to realize their full potential through the transformative wisdom and practice of yoga. Our Between the Lines series has been made possible because of the generous gift of our donors. So we thank them, and we thank you all for your presence with us today. I also now will post in the chat our online agreements. If you could please review them, and you can type yes if you agree to them. Thank you. Today, for our session, we welcome one of Kripalu's visionary leaders, Aki Hirata Baker, an energy healing facilitator and initiated medicine woman, as well as co-founder of Minka, a spiritually driven and equity-focused space that started in Brooklyn and now works with various partners and practitioners as a constellation. And that includes co-hosting programs through Kripalu's online studio. So on behalf of Kripalu, Aki, thank you for being here with us. And we will invite Aki now to, I'll spotlight her, and to lead us in a few centering breaths. And then, Aki, you can hand it over to Robert, and Robert will lead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy. I hope you can hear me. Sometimes this speaker thing does funny thing. So thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Hi, friends, and hi, new friends. I'm very happy to be here. So let us start with a nice centering breath. As my dog tried to take my arm. Okay, so first, let us just take a quick look around where we are. Look in front of us and notice what is here. Look to our right and notice what is here. And as you notice, there are certain emotions that may come to you. You can also notice that. And let that one go for now. Look to the left. Look behind us. Looking above and below. As we inhale and exhale, you can either lower your gaze or close your eyes if you feel comfortable to do so. Giving gratitude to all that we are afforded. Giving gratitude to all of the gift from Mother Earth. Allowing the abundance to just seep into us as we inhale that oxygen that's being created for us to take in by the plant. And as we exhale, the carbon dioxide leaves. And that is exactly the substance that plants need to make more oxygen for us. So in this space of sacred reciprocity, we give thanks to all that's given to us. That so much has been working to bring us to this place. Inhaling in resources and exhaling out whatever needs to leave us. And as we inhale next, we give thanks to our benevolent ancestors for their resilience and wisdom. And if you feel called to do so, you can call upon them to bless you with their presence. Remembering this resource is always available to us. And allowing your shoulders and your chest and belly to drop just a bit more, to ready for us to be together in a good way. Taking 3 more breaths together. Inhale 1. Inhale to continue to let all there is to come into you. And inhale 3. And allowing the exhale to take away all the things you no longer need and return to this place together. And now I'll pass it on to Robert.
Thanks, Aki. So, Aki, we're having a chat and everybody's watching us having a chat, basically.
Yes, we are. Oh my God.
And
my dog wants to join the conversation.
the dog's name?
Hijiki.
Okay.
Like the seaweed.
Okay. Very, very welcome.
Yes. Thank you.
We're not worried about your dog being a full member of this conversation.
Great. He may actually speak.
Yeah. Good. So give us a little bit of background on you. Like, where'd you come from?
Where I come from. Geographically speaking, I come from the island of Japan. I was born and raised there, and I was there until the age of 18. And I have moved here, and I have now called the United States my home for the past 29 years. I don't think I have told you, Robert, but I actually am going to be returning to Japan for a year starting March 31st to the island of Dragon, where we were just kind of having a conversation about, we were about to have a conversation about dragons, and it was time for us to get on.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll continue the dragon conversation now.
Yes, because it is also an year of the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where you come from, and we won't do linear time. We'll do the spiral of time. So, what's bringing you back to Japan?
The spirit call.
Mm-hmm.
I was just writing this morning to let everybody know that I was leaving because people need to know for whatever the reason. So I was writing it, and so for some people, the first question people ask is like, "What are you going to do in Japan?" It has been a spirit call. I often joke that I have to move away 7,000 miles from my home to do my healing. And it's really not a joke. It's actually a reality. I needed that space. I needed that perspective. So, this has come in a way that 2 years ago, my grandmother passed away and I was clearing out her house. And it was very clear to me that I'm being called to return to live in that house because there is some unfinished business in terms of ancestral healing and trauma healing that needs to happen within that space. There's an imprint of a trauma of my family. I have a family legacy of I have a family legacy of depression and suicide. And that's something that needs to be cleared away so my future generation don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, that's one. And there's many other reasons. Another thing is that I realized that my children has never lived on their ancestral land before. So I'm curious to see what kind of activation happens when they live there for a year. So a lot of different things is on my plate and in my brain sphere, but I'm willing to experience whatever needs to come through.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
So many people probably get those, I call them whispers from the wind. Like, oh, I'm supposed to go do this, or I'm supposed to meet this person, or I'm supposed to, change my job. How do you know for yourself? How do you know what to trust?
I have come to realize that I never really have to make decisions. My brain wants to make decisions, but decisions usually make itself. So it was series of events. For this particular thing, it was just a series of events over the past 3 years, really, for it to just kind of come to this place of, okay, let's do this. Other times just looks like my great struggle in not being haste, because I'm not the most patient person in the world. So, I think I'm always being called to listen and wait. And, and the more the more natural it becomes. And the other times that I try to force making decisions, I always make a little bit of a mess and I have to clean up after myself too. So I'm trying to wisen up a little.
Yeah. So back to the same very simple advice that basically applies in almost every situation is slow down.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's why mindfulness is such a critical tool for everybody.
And so how did you find mindfulness and this
in life itself?
Yeah.
I think the first time I noticed that, I actually also should just give a little bit of a trigger warning that I actually have a pretty traumatic past and I kind of talk about it lightly. So I want folks to just be aware that I may talk about some things. I did mention suicide. I was in a very abusive relationship and I lived in domestic violence shelter for a while. And when I actually sat, that was, for me, that was pretty much the depth of how low am I going to go is what I was keep thinking when I was in this abusive relationship. When I sat in that room in Staten Island, roach infested space with my 1-year-old baby, it came to me. You knew this. You knew this. You knew what you were doing and you knew what was happening and you chose to not pay attention. So that was a beginning of me attention. And, for some people, they would say that's like paying attention to intuition. But for me, paying attention is paying attention. Signs are everywhere. It's inside of me, it's outside of me, it's everywhere, right? So that was the beginning of me paying attention and becoming mindful of what is happening inside of me and outside of me. And later on, as I went along, I have my first studies of that was in Ayurvedic studies. So when I was studying Ayurveda, my teacher, Dr. Naina Mabali would, break down this reality of the universe as quantum physics like thing, but, speak in plain language. And that's also where my paying attention has developed even further. So that's 22 years ago, I believe. Yeah.
And apart from going to Japan, what else are you paying attention to right now in life?
The change of time, the inevitability in human beings seeing the tremendous amount of grief, and grounding myself in understanding this too is a learning moment for us, instead of being hopeless or what's the other word? Being under the illusion being under the illusion that this shouldn't be the reality that we are living in. Even though we don't like to live in this reality right now, this is the reality that we need to experience. So those are the things that I'm paying very close attention to, and how easily that I would like to escape that.
Yeah. And so what does your practice look like these days to help you stay willing to attend to this reality?
I think as I'm pretty sure you as well, when you are on this journey for a while, your practice kind of change the mode, or it shifts shapes, or, it kind of evolves over time. Sure. So for just as long as I've been with the spirit of Minka, like, I have opened this place called Minka, and people say it's a business, but I actually look at Minka as a spiritual entity. So I am just stewarding whatever this entity or the spirit of Minka wants me to do. And just as long as Minka has been with me, my practice has been a practice of looking at reality from a non-binary standpoint. That how can I be present in what is without making any judgment? Knowing that I don't like something, and I'm not negating that I don't like it. Knowing that I am deeply hurt by certain actions or certain events or situation, and still not judge it. So that has been a practice that I have been relating with for the past now like 8 years now.
Yeah. So I want to slow that one down. So help us understand, how do you experience hurt? Let's say I say, look, Aki, I don't like the triangles behind you. I think they're very distasteful, and I think that clearly indicates that you're a terrible decorator. That genuinely hurts your feelings in some authentic way. How do you feel the pain of that and the rejection in that, and not hold a judgment about me or what I've said as wrong or what I've said as ignorant or whatever?
Well, I'm fully human. So I would feel all the feelings and everything in between. So that would mean that I would be pissed off, and then I would like to deny your perspective. And then I would probably move towards making some excuses for you that, oh, he's an Irishman. He doesn't understand the beauty of triangle. I don't know whatever it is, right? So it's an oscillation that happens. I'm fully human. But at the end of the day, and I'll give this background of, I come from background of doing community organizing and food justice work, and I was much younger then. So, and oftentimes when we are in the activist space, what happens is that righteousness of how right I am and how wrong you are. But then, when you're in that space for a long time, hopefully we start to realize that's not going to solve any problems. So it's really never about right or wrong for me, because that my end goal is to achieve the ultimate goal of liberation. And that my feelings, as much as I honor them and I enjoy them, and that makes me very human and gives me this human experience, my being attached to it takes me away from my objective, which is to liberate myself and liberate, hopefully, more and more beings, and not by me liberating them, but I can only do that if I'm doing it for myself. So yeah. I know I'm one of those really corny person who people ask, like, what's your dream and goal? I was like, oh, liberation of all beings.
Yeah, I sign up to the unapologetic idealism club as well.
Yes, that, or sometimes people call it, you are actually a lot realistic than what you seem. I was like, yeah, I'm actually very realistic. I'm not going to negate the fact that I have feelings, or I also don't negate living in this particular reality. I'm very aware where I live and where I exist and why I'm here, probably.
Yeah.
I
think that makes for a brilliantly powerful combination of, if you are willing to be here and to know why you're here, but also to not be bound by it at the same time.
Yeah, on a good day, Robert, on a good day.
Sure. Yeah. Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays. Yeah.
Yeah, on a good day. There was a moment in the last, I think, November. I was in East Village, co-working actually. I needed to get some things done and I needed to be out of my house. And it hit me all of a sudden that, what was happening and how unaffected people are. And I just bursted into crying in the middle of East Village, hugging a tree, and how I knew how ridiculous it was, but I couldn't do anything but that at that moment. So I called one of my good friend, Baba Sasami, and he was like, well, what's wrong? I was like, I'm just crying. I don't know what to do with myself. I think I don't want to be human. It wasn't like I wanted to die. I just did not know what it means to be human at that moment. And that's the other day.
Yeah.
But I am very grateful that I have been given space to be able to be that emotional.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
One of my favorite meditation teachers is Adyashanti, and I was on one of his retreats, and a mother of 4 young children came up. Like, Adya, we've these examples of people like Ramana Maharshi who are just, sitting undisturbed by all that is around them, just in total samadhi and bliss. Like, I feel so far away from that. And and she sort of explained her life, 4 kids and soccer this and, et cetera, et cetera. And she says, I don't know how I'll ever sort of find peace in all of that. I'll never be like Ramana Maharshi. And Adya very beautifully just said, he said, you know what? I think if Adya or if Ramana was raising 4 children in this day and age, maybe his bliss would have been affected a little bit more than without raising 4 kids in this day and age. And I think it's something that we often lose, right, on the spiritual path, is that there's this sort of misunderstanding that there's some outcome that looks like perfection at the end of all of this. And I think, more and more that of the steps I take on my own path is that it's just about how real it becomes, not how almost how, like, that idea of it just looking a certain way, this sort of ideal state is, and I mean ideal like happiness, basically, that I'm just happy all the time. I'm in a sort of a state of Disneyland, that's actually excluding me from so much of what it means to feel alive.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can kind of, maybe what you are saying is similar to what sometimes I tell people. Hi, Hijiki, I love you too. Is that I think being on a spiritual path doesn't, because I think, well, this, not everybody probably know, but I talk about spirituality, and part of being on a spiritual path for me is the practice of decolonization. And the reason why I say that is exactly because of what you just said. That a lot of the times, most of our sufferings are caused by all of the doctrines of colonization, imperialism, patriarchy, white supremacy, right? Sense of perfectionism, sense of urgency, the quantity over qualities, and all these things are so deeply ingrained in us that when I sit with my students or when I sit with my clients, it is so evident that 99.9% of the time, the people I see are suffering from the expression of that, And one of the, and I actually think that takes us again away from human experience. And I also believe that takes us away from spiritual journey. Because we also live our lives very segmentedly, It's like I have my family life here, I have my work life over here, I have my public life here, I have my private life over there, and and I have my spiritual life somewhere over here in the 5D area. But I think for me, what's interesting and what's been rewarding is to look at everything as my spiritual life. That each breath, that each conversation, that each discomfort is an information that I can actually utilize for me to do something about and for me to be able to grow and evolve. And that perspective is very hard to convey when everybody is running away from discomfort, because discomfort is an information that alerts us to do something about.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's tie in the dragon and the medicine of the dragon. That is
the dragon.
A medicine of spirit, in my own experience, that can be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you're going to Dragon Island.
I'm going to Dragon Island, and I actually have to say I was born in the year of dragon myself. Okay. So is my husband, and so is my youngest. So I have a dragon household.
Yeah.
taking them to Dragon Island
And what
on the
is your,
Year of Dragon.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, what are the traditions that you have studied under? What have they spoken to about the dragon?
You know, what's really interesting is in Japanese spirituality and culture, a lot of the traditional belief, when I say traditional, I mean traditional. Japan is the oldest recognized country in the world. That old belief system actually is hard to find because Japan is a place where all of the information from Africa to Middle East to Asia to Eurasia ended up being departed into. So a lot of the information we have is in conjunction mainly now with Chinese and Korean information, right? So a lot of the dragon information we now have, especially in astrological sense, right? It actually is Chinese in origin. Not that that's right or wrong, right? That's great because it's a beautiful information to have. However, when I actually think about Japan as a place of dragon, it speaks to Japan as this spiritual portal that is Japan. That, you know, I have a good friend who's a musician, and he went to Japan twice, and one time he confided in me. He was like, you know, I have to be honest, when I go to Japan, or when you go to Japan, do you ever feel that it's a little spooky? As soon as you land, you feel a little bit like weird. I was like, yeah, it's actually very true. The whole island feels a little spooky. It's not spooky. That's the word that we know. But it is just so filled with spiritual energy that it just feels like, where did I land? But I think that's also very true to many different places with deep spiritual roots.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that about Ireland? Or do you feel that about Ireland when you go back now? That was your normal then.
Yeah. When I land in Ireland, it is like I enter into a week-long or 2-week-long psilocybin journey that doesn't end until I get off the plane back in America. Yeah, it is. The island of Ireland is the size of the state of Indiana in America, and it has 3,000 known sacred wells. It has over 500 monuments that are older than the pyramids of Egypt. It has trees in farmers' fields that will not be touched and will not be moved or will not be cut down because people know that the wee folk or the fairies live and reside in those trees. We have trees that won't be cut at any time except for one day of the year because they still honor the laws, the ancient Brehon laws of Ireland that are from thousands of years ago that protected certain trees in certain ways. So there's a vibrancy, and there's like everything else about Western culture in the mix. But you walk that land, and even the language, they say it's impossible to speak Irish and be an atheist, because the language is infused with the language of spirit. So to say hello in Gaelic Irish is Diagwich, which means basically spirit be with you.
Do you speak Gaelic?
I have an cúpla focal, a few words, and it's part of my reclamation is to I've given myself a challenge to be fluent by the age of 50.
Wow, that's beautiful. It is so fascinating, and this is not just in Japanese and Irish, but how when we go really back to that ancient old things, all things become pretty much the same. Because, you know, I don't know if you have ever seen the picture of like trees and rocks having these paper things in Japan.
Yeah.
Like that look like a lightning. It looks like lightning because that's actually lightning, the spirit descending into that particular thing. So you are not to touch it. It's basically the same thing that you're talking about. In Japanese language, it's so interesting because in school educational system, they will teach you Japanese language came from China. We didn't have language before China and Korea gave us language, even though our country is older. That's a very interesting concept. But now they're actually finding many, many different sources of old Japanese languages that's based in, light language, that it's a channeled method of language making, that each sound has a particular frequency and a meaning. So it's a lot like Sanskrit as well. Sanskrit, when you say something, that's what it means. And in Japan, that's also how our language has been constructed over God knows, I don't know how long. And that's basically what he was saying with Gaelic.
Yeah. And it ties to your comment about the work of activism and how when we use our voices, we create a sound in the world of vibration. And the question I'm often always asking myself in my leadership position is, what is the sound that I'm creating with my speech? Is it the sound of unity? Is it the sound of love? Is it the sound of empowerment? Or is it the sound of division and disconnection, etc.? Which wolf am I feeding? Am I continuing to support colonization in my speech, even if I speak against colonization?
And that's really where I see the importance of, some will say healing practice, but for me, it's the importance of spiritual practice being a part of decolonization or activism work. Because if we were to only believe in the tangible and move from the place of what we can see, touch, and feel with our five senses, sometimes we lose track of where we are going, because liberation is something we haven't seen. And it takes a radical imagination from all of us. And when we are doing radical imagination work, we can't rely on something we already have, because what we have, as great as it is, yes, you can rely on the dragon, Robert. Yes, we can.
I'm bringing in the dragon, the wood
yes.
dragon, on my altar, because this is, my son, he's 6 years old, and he said, do dragons exist? And
wow. He's asking that question, huh?
And I said, well, to me, they do. And, is there archaeological proof that dragons ever walked or on the earth or swam or flew in our skies? I can't find that. But do my ancestors have stories about these? Yes. Did they live in my lineage for millennia? Yes. Do I have experiences with dragons when I close my eyes? Yes. And so that idea of like what's real, if we can only see it, touch it, and heaven forbid measure it, then that's what's real. But then we lose what's mysterious. And these times are deeply mysterious and uncertain. And I think we need to lean into that mystery as opposed to lean out of it for the path through.
Yeah. How do you navigate, or what do you think about leading into the mysteries? Yes. And also there is a lot of confusion, and from my perspective, maybe not it is the case, but a lot of misinformation about those things. How do you deal with that, or what do you think of that?
We live in the world of misinformation and intentional disinformation now. That is our reality that we live in. And one of the greatest gifts that my Irish shamanic teacher gave me was after I was becoming certified in that lineage. He said that the first place you should go for affirmation is to your ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something incredibly powerful about that for me, because it took out the sort of the noise of this world that we're in. And when I go and commune and work with my ancestors, that's a much simpler and clearer conversation. And so it helps me stay much lighter on my feet as I move through the noise.
Yeah, beautiful. Because sometimes I wonder, I was like, I wonder, how does Robert run Kripalu? I mean, it's a huge undertaking, no? And I've spoken with you, and I've also spoken with your colleagues in a way. I was like, wow, that just seems like, I guess a lot of conversation with your ancestors.
Yeah, we do a couple of things that I think are really beautiful. We talk to the land all the time, and we ask the land that we are stewards of, what do you want to have happen here? It's like the restaurant in your neighborhood that always fails, and a new restaurant comes in, and 18 months later it fails, and 6 months later it fails, and you're like, why can't that place ever work? Because nobody's asking that little plot of land what it wants to be.
Right.
We're trying to impose our will. And so instead of trying to impose my will as CEO, it's really, what do you want to have happen here as the land? And then listening to the sort of the spirit, like you said, of Minka, the spirit of Kripalu, and asking its spirit, what do you want to have happen here? Like, how do you want to serve? And then people are always saying, God, you're holding a lot as CEO. And the greatest gift that I've given to myself is to stop trying to hold anything and allow myself to be held as CEO. And I've become very clear that I have, on one side of the page, I'm really clear what my job is. It's to listen to the land and to the spirit of this organization and the community, to see the needs of the world and to find a way to intersect those things, to come up with a really great plan, to have the right resources there and articulate the vision and sort of inspire people to implement that vision. And then everything on the other side, which is how it's all going to shake out, what the ultimate outcome is going to be, that's all spirit's work. That's all life's job. That's God's job, Goddess's job. That's not, if I'm trying to control that outcome, I'm just in a bounded knot of stress. So I just come back to my job and I do that. And then what will be, will be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easier said than done, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. To be a moment by moment in a meeting, moment by moment, stay on your side, stay on your side, stay on your side. Because it brings up, this is the greatest opportunity for all of my childhood wounding to come up. And Kripalu, you work at Kripalu, you come to Kripalu, it is going to force you to learn something. Whether you want to or not, it is going to bring it up. And, I'm a personality that doesn't like to fail. I'm a personality that doesn't like to be seen as a failure. So I got to take over as CEO in the depths of COVID, and where there was, no plan and no clear line of sight of how we were going to get at this. And it tests everything about you and it brings up all of these things. But it's also a phenomenal place and a phenomenal opportunity for liberation.
Yeah. So you have been listening to the lessons of Kripalu. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right now, not so much, but I mean, really is true. Some people ask, like, what has been the biggest spiritual journey of my life? That was to steward the spirit of Minka, to do what others may consider unthinkable in a way. That, when I started with Minka, it was 2016, early 2016. People have never heard of sliding scale. people have not people were not talking about equity and healing or spirituality within one sentence. And my then business partners were very much against what I was to say. Or even to bring, actually, it's to the point that even to bring the word spiritual within the context of wellness and healing, that was also strongly opposed.
Yeah.
But it was very clear to me that I had this very clear vision it was just as clear as day. There was no other way to do it but this way, unless I want to do something else. But what I wanted was nothing short of talking about liberations all the time.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't want to talk about bottom line. They wanted me to talk about bottom line, but I was like, no, I can't talk about bottom line because I am in the work of helping and supporting people to liberate themselves. I can't talk about bottom line. We will do what we need to do, and we'll see. Yeah. And 8 years later, we're still doing it. Are we floating on money? No, we are not. And are we floating on the love of the community? Yes, we are. And we are preyed upon all the time.
When the light is brightest, the shadow is longest. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Yeah.
And Charles Eisenstein, I know we're at time, so we have to finish, but Charles Eisenstein said the currency he's investing in is community.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows that the greatest way to ensure that you'll be looked after in life is to treat people well.
Yeah, and I think I am the living proof of that. And, I think also, this idea of community and how it has become also a trendy word. And, the word community in itself is losing its meaning, and it has become very transactional. And, I'm based in New York City, so it's extremely hard to not include transaction in anything, right? Because it is a very expensive place to live. However, though, that the point is, again, to live in this reality that I'm given in and be able to still see the spirit in that. And somehow it works. And community is such community, when it's actually really true, is invincible. And I actually think that's really what we are trying to do now in this world, is to remember that interdependence is the way for us to move forward, not independence or not codependence. Because quite honestly, our three-dimensional world right now is pretty much a blend of strange independence and a deeply seated codependence. So, I think when we talk about community, it's about reciprocity, it's about interdependency, it's about being able to be in relationship when we don't agree.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is something Kripalu was looking at very closely, is what role can it play in helping people remember how to have dialogues, not to come to a place of converged perspective, but to remember how to speak and not lose relationship.
Yeah. I'm a part of, so I have, obviously I'm genetically a Japanese woman, but my spiritual root is in many different places. I'm in the United States. One of the deepest practice that I have is in the practice of the Toltec in the Nahua speaking region of Mexico. And one of the words that we often say is ometeo. I don't know if anybody have heard that one, but ome means two, teo means energy. But it doesn't simply mean two energy, because when we are talking about the creation, one is senteo, that's like first creation. And from there's Ometsiwa, that's Misistu, that's a feminine principle, can't quite say the masculine principle, but there's a Mr. too, right? But together we have this another word called Ometeo. The reason for that is the world expansive principle is based on binary that we create because we have opposing forces, plus and negative in electricity, egg and sperm in human biology. So we can go on and on. So the opposing forces are necessary in order for us to live. But we have come to a place where we are trying to eradicate one side over the other. Or I don't know why we're trying to do that, but that's what the world is kind of trying to have us do, right? No, that's actually completely against life and its principle. But Ometeo, my good sister Ashwini says, Ometeo means harmony through conflict. I actually think of Ometeo as a opposing and complementary forces coming together to create refined solution. And I am very hopeful that we are living in that time that we are starting to see that.
Yeah. There are so many, we will finish here. There are so many people, good people doing so many things in this world to create a more beautiful world for all of us. I think we don't remember that because of what is shared with us through media, etc. But there are I think as many, if not more, people out there moving towards a more beautiful world than there are people that are from a place of trauma trying to create more division.
Yeah, and trauma too is our information, and I'm hoping for, and I'm working towards the world where being wounded is okay.
Yeah.
That's not a life sentence. That is the point of transformation where miraculous thing can happen. And that's what happened to me. And I've seen it over and over, and it can happen for everybody on this planet.
I think I just posted on my Instagram stories today, some of the greatest shamans are covered in scars.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, right?
Yeah.
And we can't disdain from that. And we can be allergic to our discomfort.
Yeah.
And more of that as we go along, and I think we'll be in good place. And I think so many of us are doing that on our own, and that's why healing and wellness is becoming so mainstream. Great thing.
Yeah. Well, Aki, thank you so much for your time. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. It was great to talk with you, and great to be with some of the old friends.
Yeah, great to have everybody with us. There's some information about some upcoming programming with Aki. And Aki, we're just going to take a deep breath in with you. We'll let it out. And the next one is going to be dedicated for peaceful travels for Aki and her family. Thank you all. We'll see you soon.